Hello everyone. Today we will be reviewing section A of the CSET English A, paper 2, which is summary writing. Right into it. Ready? All right. So as always, you give credit to Bing Images. Credit must be given to Bing Images for being the source from which I obtained this photo. And it's very fitting because it says, I just need the main ideas. And that's exactly what that's exactly the objective of a summary, to extract the main ideas, or in other words, the only what is relevant or important. Okay, so tips. But first let's see what is a summary. A summary is defined as a brief statement that gives the most important information about something. Yes. So what a summary does is that it extracts only the important information and presents it, right? So let's say you're a secretary and you're taking minutes for a meeting. You're not going to literally write every single thing that takes place. Like if one of the board members coughs or something, you don't include that, right? I know that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get my point. You only include the important details, right? And that's what summaries are about. The text and point of view of the original passage must be maintained. Yes. So whatever text or point of view was used, whatever text or point of view was used in the original passage should be maintained within the summary. So if they used third person, then you would keep it in the third person. If they use first person, then you can use first person, right? And usually it'd be first person plural at that. You should write within 5 words of the word limit. Okay, this is very important. The word limit is 120 words. That's not a lot of words. You know, those are not a lot of words, right? But you want to write within 5 words of this limit. So that means 115 to 125 would be an ideal range, right? Anything below that would indicate that information is missing, or it contains too little information. And anything above that, which would be the 125, would indicate that too much information was included. So you did not really extract the main details. You probably included details that were not relevant, right? But that's a good range, 115 to 125 words. Be precise with the information you give as the main points. It should not be vague. Okay. So what I mean by this is that you know that in the first section of the summary, you're going to be required to provide the five main points, right? So when you provide these 5 main points, you have to present them as complete sentences. Therefore, you should not be presenting a main point as 1 or 2 words. Okay, you can't do that. You can't be vague about the main point. Present the main point as a complete idea. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say to be precise with the information. Give the details that were mentioned in the passage, right? And it would usually be done in a sentence. So it must be a complete idea, not 1 or 2 words that you just put together and say, well, okay, this is the main idea. No, that will not work. Although you get marks for partially correct answers, you certainly will not get any credit for writing one or two words. No. Right? So just remember, please be precise with the information and make sure that they are written in complete sentences. All right, we continue. Use your own words as far as possible. Yes. The whole idea behind the summary is for you to understand the original passage and then produce a shortened version with only the relevant points using your own words. If you sit there and you write back and you write verbatim what the passage says, then that doesn't really show that you understand. You understand? So if you want to display high levels of comprehension, then you should use your own words. Using your own words shows that you understand what's going on, because in order for you to use your own words, you have to understand what it is that you are reading, because then you would know, okay, you would know what synonym to use, what other expression to would be similar. You understand? So this is why it is imperative for you to use your own words, right? But as far as possible. You can't do it for every single thing, right? But as far as possible. Another important point. If the instructions state that the summary should be written in one paragraph, then you should only use one paragraph. Otherwise, you should use at least two paragraphs to write your summary. Okay, so sometimes in the instructions, it would tell you in no more than 120 words and in not more than one paragraph, right? So when you get instructions like that, you should write the summary within one paragraph. You can write it within the blob, as they would say, right? Or block, whatever, what have you, right? But if it does not specify a paragraph, then you would write it in at least two paragraphs. And then I think the instructions would say it should be in continuous prose. Well, yes. In that case, you would write at least two paragraphs because you only have 120 words. So it's not that you have this huge set of words to play with, right? So at least two paragraphs. If the instructions do not explicitly state that it should be written within one paragraph, right? Next point, use transition words and phrases so that ideas flow seamlessly. Yes, because in your summary, yes, you're extracting the main ideas and then you're putting them together, but you want to make sure that ideas flow seamlessly, or you want to make sure that ideas are, you're able to show that ideas are linked. And you can't do that without the use of transition words and phrases. So those are very important. Those help to enhance your organization, right? This is considered formal writing. Therefore, you should avoid informal language like contractions, right? So cannot instead of can. So spell out your words. Don't be using abbreviations, okay? Now, when it comes to the main idea, this is going to be the challenge, right? This is the skill when it comes to summaries. How do we extract the main idea? But first of all, what is the main idea? So the main idea is going to be the central idea or the most important piece of information. That's right. In the summary or in the extract, you're going to be required to select 5 main points. Okay? Sometimes you may have a passage with 5 paragraphs. Sometimes you may have a passage with 4 paragraphs. But what you should do is you should look at each paragraph and extract the main idea from that paragraph. So this would mean that, naturally, if the passage has 4 paragraphs, then one paragraph is going to have 2 points because you need 5. Okay? So each paragraph will have a main idea, and this can usually be found in one sentence within the paragraph. Yes. So if you look at the paragraph is going to be dealing with a particular issue, but usually there's going to be one sentence within that paragraph that basically sums up the entire paragraph. What is it about, right? Although a topic sentence occurs at the beginning of a paragraph, this is not always appropriate to use as a main idea. No, not always. Although we know that a topic sentence tells you what the paragraph is going to be about, it's not always appropriate because in that sense, we would just literally, when we get the passage, we would just highlight the first line in every sentence. Sorry, the first line in every paragraph. And that is not really true, right? That's not appropriate because you can read that passage and then look in the middle of it and see a sentence that would more aptly sum up everything than the first line, because the first line might be used as a hook rather than to tell the reader what this paragraph is about. So this is the reason that I say that sometimes the topic sentence is not always ideal to use as as a main idea, right? But the main idea essentially is just going to be the central idea, right? So it's going to tell us what this paragraph is going to be, what this paragraph is about, right? Any additional details which clarify, support, or explain the main idea are known as supporting details, right? Now, if you are having trouble identifying the main idea, there's another method that can help you. So right now I'm going to show you what elements should be excluded from your summary. And maybe this could help you in identifying the main ideas. So your summary should not contain, so your summary should not contain examples, statistics, figurative language, opinions, quotes, minor details, or repetitions. None of these elements should be within your summaries. So if you bear these in mind, these can help you to understand what the main idea is. Once you know that these elements have no place in your summary, then most likely this will help you in accurately selecting the main ideas. That's right. So let us go on to an example. All right. So what you asked on the rule pages provided, pages 6 and 7. There may be more space than you need. There is a blank space for any notes you may want to make. This will not be marked. Question 1. Of course, this is question 1 because it's section A. Read the following extract on alternative sentencing carefully and list 5 main points discussed. Then write a summary of the article in not more than 120 words. If this limit is exceeded, only the first 120 words of your answer will be read and assessed. As far as possible, use your own words. Your summary must be in continuous prose. Your summary must include the 5 points identified and other relevant points. You may use the space on page 5 to jot down a plan. In your answer, you will be assessed on how well you A, Identify the main ideas and opinions in the extract. B, organize and express these ideas and opinions in your own words. And C, use appropriate grammar, sentence structure, vocabulary, spelling, and punctuation. And that's a given, of course, because it's English. Now, as you see, as I told you previously, sometimes the instructions may not ask you to write it within one paragraph, and this is an example of that. So this says it must be in continuous prose. Therefore, you write it with paragraphs. So you need at least 2 paragraphs, right? Yes. All right. So those are the instructions, and this was taken from June 2022. Mm-hmm. So this is the passage, and I would have highlighted the important points, but we're going to do it paragraph by paragraph, okay? So let's go. Alternative sentencing. We respond emotionally to the many reports of crime we read about and see on television, and we want to throw into prison everyone convicted of a crime. But the cost of maintaining those imprisoned becomes a punishment for the taxpayers. Prisons are not only very costly to run, but they are now producing more repeat offenders than reformed citizens. Prisons are not only dangerously overcrowded, but prison programs are completely insufficient to rehabilitate criminals or help them to re-enter society as productive citizens. The number of repeat offenders tells us this. Okay, so this is the first paragraph. What is the main idea emerging from this paragraph? Okay. Now you see, if we had used the first line, do you think that that would suffice or that would be appropriate as a main idea? No. This is why I said that earlier. But the main idea emerging here is that the prisons nowadays are filled with more repeat offenders than anything. So it's basically saying that the prisons are counterproductive because there's so many prisoners that are repeat offenders, which means that they're not learning. So prison is not teaching them anything. So that is the idea that is emerging from this first paragraph, that the prisons are counterproductive because they currently have lots of repeat offenders. So that's exactly the idea that's emerging from this first paragraph. Let's go to paragraph 2. Taken from family and friends, deprived of normal relationships and privacy, sometimes forced to accept things that are demeaning, the prisoner is constantly reminded of his misdeed. Many persons who have studied this issue are not surprised that when these prisoners are released, they become hostile, bitter, depressed people who lack the motivation to become useful citizens. Okay, this is a shorter paragraph, but what is the main idea emerging here? That it is very difficult for prisoners to reintegrate into society because of the conditions to which they were subjected when they were incarcerated. Okay, so it's difficult for them to become productive members of society because of the conditions to which they were subjected. So that's the idea emerging here. Okay, so this is talking about the damage that prison does to the psyche of these individuals, right? 3, let's see paragraph 3. One management solution offered is to reduce the population, and I have various parts highlighted because those were used to help me gather the main idea, right? One management solution offered is to reduce the population inside of the prisons, as well as the cost of prisoner maintenance to the nation. The proposal is to hold in the prisons those guilty of violent crimes and to allow judges to construct meaningful ways of punishing nonviolent offenders. Some of these nonviolent offenders are over-punished by jail term sentences, while many rich and influential offenders face little deprivation while in jail and are often able to maintain their power and status from jail. Instead of automatically choosing a jail sentence for non-violent criminals, some judges have begun to order such offenders to perform a set number of hours of community service tailored to the criminal and the crime committed. Okay, so what's the idea emerging from this third paragraph? So it's talking about reducing the prison population. Okay, so that is the idea emerging from this passage, for this paragraph. And what is the actual solution? So the proposal is to only hold those guilty of violent crimes in prison. So those who commit non-violent crimes should be given, less harsh penalties, right? So if you see the last line being highlighted, that would be an example. That would be an example. Of course, I wouldn't mention that, but that is also used to help me come up with the main idea. When it says some judges have begun to order such offenders to perform a set right. So that would be an example of a penalty that will be given to someone who commits a non-violent offense, right? Okay, so that would be the main idea emerging from paragraph 3. So let's continue. All right, so paragraph 4, and that's the final paragraph. With the option of alternative sentencing, judges will be able to devise sentences that, while punishing the offender, also benefit the community. One such sentence, which a judge gave to an offender who had killed a man while driving drunk, illustrates how the community can benefit from an alternative sentence. The driver was allowed to continue working so that his family would not have to go on welfare, thus saving the taxpayers money. The offender had to live at the county jail and pay for his room and board there. For 1 year, he was ordered to work 200 hours in a hospital trauma center and to spend 200 hours on the lecture circuit describing the catastrophic results of his actions. Sentences like this one benefit everyone involved and help us realize how conventional sentences can sometimes be worthless. So in this paragraph, this is obviously talking about how alternative sentences can benefit the community. And they even give you an example with the man who killed another person while he was driving drunk. So what they did, instead of putting him in jail, right, he was still allowed to work so that his family could still be supported, right? So the last line would be a main idea because this is saying sentences like this one benefit everyone involved and help us realize how conventional sentences can be sometimes worthless. That's the point. That's the point that they want you to see. So that is the main idea. Not only, so there are two ideas emerging from this. Yes, that the alternative sentences will kill two birds with one stone. They will punish the offender and they can also benefit the community at the same time. But another point from the same paragraph is that these alternative sentences help us to see that the conventional sentences can be worthless at times, right? So that's two ideas emerging from this paragraph. All right, so now we are going to see my 5 points. And let me say this. When it comes to the extraction of the points, I'm not saying that everybody should have the same thing. And by the way, these points need to be listed in order, okay? So they have to be listed how they occur in the passage. So you can't have point 3 before point 1. No, it doesn't work like that. They must be listed in order. Okay, that's something I forgot to mention. But what I was going to say is that some people may have different points based on their own understanding of the passage, but there's going to be a standard, right? So they're going to have 5 points extracted, okay? And everybody's going to be assessed on that standard, okay? But I would say that the main idea should not really be subjective. That's all I would say on that. So to be honest, there really shouldn't be too big of a difference in the responses that students have, right? But yeah. So my first point, prisons are counterproductive given that nowadays they are filled with a lot of repeat offenders. 2, it is difficult for prisoners to reintegrate into society given the harsh treatment to which they are subjected. When they are incarcerated. 3, in order to reduce the prison population, it has been suggested that non-violent offenders be given penalties that are less harsh and fit the crime so that prisons only hold those guilty of violent crimes. 4, these alternative sentences not only punish the offender, but they also benefit the community. And 5, these alternative sentences help us to realize that traditional sentences can be worthless at times. Now, we need to write the summary. So we put all this together and we just use transition words to connect all our ideas. And then, of course, we use paragraphs. So let's see. So alternative sentencing. This is my summary. Nowadays, prisons are counterproductive given that they are filled with a lot of repeat offenders. This is a huge expense for taxpayers and has resulted in overcrowding. However, it is difficult for prisoners to reintegrate into society because of the harsh treatment to which they are subjected when they are incarcerated. Consequently, it has been suggested that non-violent offenders be given penalties that are less harsh and fit the crime so that prisons only hold those guilty of violent crimes. This will reduce the prison population and ease taxpayers. These alternative sentences not only punish the offender, but they also benefit the community. Ultimately, they help us to realize that traditional sentences can be worthless at times. And my word count was 117. Right on the money. All right. So you see I had a few transition words there. I had however in the first paragraph. I had consequently at the start of the second, and towards the end, ultimately. Yes, ultimately. So these are all words that I use to connect my ideas, right? So that there's flow. All right. So I want to thank you all for watching this presentation. I trust that it was helpful. Continue to strive, and I shall see you in the next one.